It is not a religion, but it is a relationship. To some, this may be the most amazing revelation they have ever heard of. Others think it's unheard of, or at least not from above, especially not the Pope, since religion is the world's only hope. But this phrase should not be taken lightly or figuratively, for it was not meant to be a fantasy, but in fact, a reality. You see, religion has been seen as man getting closer to God, but it's more like man trying to get closer to God because we never did quite make it. Yet many push God away thinking they already got it saved, and so they tell God, oh, I get it. But it's better to admit you don't know than to live your whole life believing you know it all, because then it's so easy to fall. But let's go back, way back in the past, and we will realize that religion has been around for quite a long time. Man's attempt to breach into the spiritual realm, to find a solution, an answer, a cause for natural disaster, a cure or a sign, God or God, something divine, to communicate with and even abide in an eternal spiritual world. Humans have always been trying to reconnect with whom they have been disconnected with since the time of Eden. And so we built religious systems in an attempt to reach Him, but only failed attempts were what we completed. The problem with these religious systems that were built is the lack of foundation. Just like any building without foundation won't stand for very long, if at all. Any religious structure without a clear, continuous connection with God at the base is destined to fall. The reason why the world is sick of it all. Though we intend nothing but good, there's one thing we constantly overlook: relationship. God did not come down from heaven to create one more religion for the collection. He came down to have relation. He became human so we could relate, so we could connect. The root, the birth, the spark, the center of any strong relationship is a connection. Now I know, let's take a moment for reflection, because at times it gets a bit complex and I don't want to lose you in the introduction, but I've received an inspiration, so please have some patience. Now I understand why breaking up can be so tough, even when it's breaking up with something you don't love. It's because of the connections. You don't become friends with someone you have nothing in common with. Think about your best friend and why you are so close. It is because you both can relate. The reason why not any shaker or circumstance can break a friendship. But in fact, the BFF relationship can only break if either side decides to cut the connection. God and man were hand in hand best friends. But one day, Adam and Eve, deceived out of God's plan, decided, let's eat it. But they didn't understand that at that moment, they had planned to cut the relation, the connection. The link between God and man had just been broken. And since then, God was seen as God and no longer a friend. God became foreign to man's relationships. And now all men had an end. And death became our new friend. But God longed to reestablish a connection with His hand-in-hand best friend. But sadly, man's ability to relate with God had come to an end. But God, with His omniscience, had already known this would happen. And He happened to have already prepared a plan since before He even created the earth's land. God's salvation plan to come down to earth and establish every possible connection with man. But now, not just as God, but as God-man. And so He introduced His antique but new plan, Emmanuel, Jesus. And He walked as man, He lived as man, He suffered as man, He experienced everything man can so we could once again relate. See, Christ faced death only to break into the foundation of death's relationship with man. And so Jesus cut the connection, and death was no longer man's new friend. Because of Jesus, anything we encounter, face, or struggle with in life, God says, I can relate. Death is no longer just our fate, but an introduction to the gates. Jesus left behind something amazing which we call Christianity. But it is not a religion, but it is a relationship. So stop giving God just some church time and start giving him some personal time. Stop giving him likes on Facebook and give him the love that's in your heart. God's been trying all this time to love you, and all you got to do is say, I love you too. Take your life off airplane mode and connect to God. You see, the best part of this new relationship is that God no longer wanted it to be just a friendship. And with the death and the ascension of his son, he opened the gates of his own home and said, welcome, not my friends, but my daughters and my sons. Welcome.